Hey there, Pyromaniacs, it's Christmas time yet again. Time for presents, eggnog, candy canes, and the Billy and Mandy Christmas special. Or maybe that last one's just me. Although, something that's surprisingly not associated with the holidays a lot of the times is video games. Sure, you might get a video game as a gift, but when it comes to evoking the holiday spirit, video games tend to not fare very well. Which is bizarre considering how Christmas is synonymous with mindless consumerism. And what's more emblematic of mindless consumerism than spending your monthly paycheck on digital items in a modern game that'll inevitably get shut down in the year?
Modern gaming.
But in all seriousness, I definitely have games I associate with the holidays for one reason or another. Usually for nostalgic reasons, as I got them as Christmas gifts when I was little. When it comes to games specifically designed to be Christmas games, the quality tends to fluctuate. There are countless Christmas movies, so it's kinda odd that video games usually get something like Space Invaders but replace the aliens with reindeer, or a bowling game but the pens are elves. That being said, there are definitely games with Christmassy vibes, along with non-Christmas games with Christmas-themed expansions. So, to celebrate the holiday, I've decided to compile a list of a couple to share with you guys. 'Tis the season of giving, after all.
Is Skyrim on the list?
What?
Skyrim is a Christmas game, after all.
Huh? Todd, what are you talking about? No, it's not.
Use it as the internet says so, and if you don't play it right, now I'll banish you off to a random corner of space and time.
Oh, for the love of... Fine. Let's first touch on the merits of Skyrim as a Christmas game. For the lack of a better analogy, Skyrim is like the Die Hard of video games. Which is ironic, since there are actually quite a few actual Die Hard video games. Just like the debate over whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie, whenever you bring up the idea of Christmas games, there's always that one guy who brings up Skyrim as an option. The difference is Die Hard actually takes place on Christmas. I don't think Christmas is even a thing in Skyrim. I mean, there is the Breton holiday of Saturali, and wait, no, I'm not using lore to justify this. What am I doing? Listen, I will always find an excuse to gush about how much I love Skyrim. And I do tend to boot it up during the holidays for the nostalgia factor, as I did actually receive it as a Christmas present. I just never got why people insist that it's a Christmas game. Why? Because of the snow? Halo has snow. Is Halo a Christmas game? I guess if you want to consider the religious element of the holiday, then you can make an argument that Talos is a Christ-like figure with him being both man and divine, having ascended to the planet of Aetherius to join the Pantheon, and then you can make the argument that the persecution of Talos worshippers under imperial rule is a direct parallel to the persecution of Christians in ancient Rome, but at that point I feel like I'm digging a little too deep and I'm using lore as a justification again. People like Skyrim as a Christmas game solely because the snow-covered Nordic landscapes of the game's world make them think of this time of year. And while I personally do see that as a little too surface level to consider it one myself, I completely understand why people like to associate it with the holidays. So, how was that, Todd?
Good enough. I'll spare you this time.
Man, that dude gives me the creeps. Anyway, on to the next one. What would you guys say about a healthy dose of Duke? Duke Nuclear Winter is one of 3 third-party expansion packs for Duke Nukem 3D, the other 2 being Duke Caribbean Life's a Beach and Duke It Out in DC. All were made by smaller indie companies and authorized by 3D Realms to be put on store shelves. This expansion begins with, oh, holy night, what is that thing? Okay, so it starts with the most terrifying snowman in the world, complete with human skeleton arms, giving us the rundown of what's happening. Roughly a year has passed since the events of the main game, and the aliens are back and have brainwashed Santa Claus with the help of the feminist elven militia. The 90s were a more primitive age, children. They knew not what they did.
Now it's time for Duke to make those alien bastards pay for jacking up Christmas.
For the most part, Nuclear Winter is exactly what it says on the tin. It's Duke 3D, but Christmas themed. All the enemy sprites have been made more festive, the levels have snow and carolers and other Yuletide iconography, but the expansion itself, oh boy. The levels are frankly kinda lazy. The first episode is just the first level of the main game, but played in reverse and with a Christmas skin over it. It's cool seeing this area with a festive coat of paint, but it's also very clear that the levels were not intended to be played backwards. And the devs working on this expansion didn't seem to care about accommodating for the hiccups it would cause. At least the levels after this are wholly original, for the most part. There is this one area that's just straight up E1M1 from Doom, and I can't decide whether it's a cute homage or just more corner cutting. Aside from that, the rest of the levels aren't necessarily what I would call bad, just rudimentary and a bit confusing at times, which, to be fair, is pretty common for boomer shooters anyways. This is widely considered to be the worst of the Duke 3D expansions, and looking at the other ones, I definitely see why. They definitely did way more with their themes than Nuclear Winter did. For example, in Duke Caribbean, you have an arsenal of water guns, pineapple grenades, and ice machines. And Duke's all decked out in flip-flops and swim trunks. Meanwhile here, you still have Duke's vanilla sprite and all the vanilla guns. Why not give Duke a puffy jacket, ski pants, and maybe even a pair of spiked snowshoes for extra damage? Why not have snowball grenades, an icicle machine gun, or a candy cane shotgun? It just lacks personality is all, which is frankly the biggest crime you can commit with a character like Duke freaking Nukem. A character that is all personality. It's not offensively bad like one would expect from the worst Duke 3D expansion, and it actually does do a good job as a collection of holiday-themed levels. It just misses the mark in some places and feels like it was rushed onto store shelves to meet the holiday season. And it didn't even do that because it released on December 30! But if you just want a Christmas-themed shooter that lets you blow up snowmen and shoot Santa in the face with a rocket launcher, you can definitely do worse. From third-party expansions to first-party standalone expansions and spin-offs, we have Spider-Man Miles Morales. At first glance, this definitely falls into the die-hard, just happens to be set near Christmas category. The story has very little to do with the holidays, more just using it as a backdrop more than anything. The story focuses on a teenage Miles Morales being temporarily entrusted as New York's one and only Spider-Man, as Peter has to leave New York for a while to take care of some things in Symkaria with Mary Jane. For the non-losers out there, Symkaria is the homeland of Silver Sable. After that setup, the game is your typical Spider-Man story. A villain that turns out to have a history with Spidey, an evil corpo meddling with science he doesn't fully understand, Spidey accidentally putting his loved ones in harm's way, inevitably leading to one of... Actually, I'm gonna stop right there. While the main story doesn't directly tie into Christmas, the game definitely gives off the Christmas spirit in more ways than one. The story explores themes of family and community, with the side missions in the game giving a lot of focus on Miles helping out people in his neighborhood of Harlem. These people he's known and helped out for years and now has the opportunity to help them even more as Spider-Man. And then when you see all these people you helped throughout the game come together to cheer Spidey on in the final act, it's just heartwarming. Not to mention, many of the alternate costumes also feature Miles bundled up with scarves, jackets, and other winter attire. Heck, even the end suit, which is from a comic set in the literal apocalypse, fits right in here. I'd say without a doubt that Miles Morales is a great game to play around this time of year. It just has this wholesome vibe about it that gives it a certain festive quality. If not from the story, then from the snowy streets of New York and the feeling of togetherness that the story emphasizes. Speaking of superheroes, next up is Saints Row 4. No, I'm not kidding. If you're a longtime viewer of my channel, you might know that I'm a big fan of Saints Row. One of my first game reviews was a full series retrospective, and I even made a Saints Row 2 music video with Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio that I'm actually weirdly still proud of. Even weirder still is that despite how massive a departure it is from the rest of the series, with how it traded street gangs and corporate conspiracies for alien invaders and extremely outdated Matrix parodies, I actually kinda like Saints Row 4. Don't get me wrong, it's a terrible Saints Row game, but it's a phenomenal Crackdown game. Saints Row 4 is a better Crackdown 3 than the actual Crackdown 3, and I'm willing to die on that hill. Similar to Duke 3D, Saints Row 4 also had a Christmas expansion, titled Saints Row 4: How the Saints Saved Christmas. This was the second expansion for the game, and was released just before the series went to hell. Literally. And then figuratively. The DLC follows the Saints having a Christmas party on their spaceship, when a portal opens up and Shaundi from the future steps out to warn them that Santa Claus was captured by the alien warlord Zinyak, and if they don't save him now, he'll be replaced by Claus, an evil warlord that'll wreak havoc in the future. If you've only played Saints Row 1 and 2 and have somehow avoided what this series has become, you're probably having an aneurysm right now, and I'm sorry about that. But what I'm not sorry about is saying that this is actually an incredibly fun expansion. This is basically everything Duke Nuclear Winter should have been. It's a wacky and zany adventure full of references to classic Christmas films like Miracle on 34th Street, A Christmas Story, and Die Hard, because of course. You fight gingerbread men, toy soldiers, monsters, crazed elves, you get a new melee weapon called the North Pole, and you even get to join Santa in delivering presents and coal to the people of Steelport. It really gives you everything you could ask for from an expansion like this. Also, maybe I'm just traumatized by the reboot, but the ending of this DLC almost felt like a perfect send-off to these characters. All of them just enjoying each other's company, making the best of a bad situation, and finding ways to stay sane in this insane world they found themselves in. When you think about all the stuff the boss had to go through in previous games, you almost feel content knowing that now he has a group of close friends to rely on and keep him company. Well, until Gat resets the universe and ruins everything, but I don't like to talk about that. The point is, you can't get much better than a story about superpowered street thugs saving Christmas from inside the Matrix. I mean, you definitely can, but this is still a good time regardless. So, where do we go from here?
Downward, of course.
Infected for the PSP is really just a Christmas game by association, with the game being set during the holiday season, but the game is so insane that I needed to add it here just so I can talk about it. The game takes place in New York City 3 weeks before Christmas as a zombie virus suddenly and rapidly overtakes the city. But luckily, you, yes you, nameless protagonist, have special blood that contains the cure. It's like The Last of Us if it were good. You're enlisted as a special operative to fight back against the zombie plague and are armed with a viral gun that uses your own blood as ammo, which is actually a really fun and unique spin on the zombie virus concept. Now, if only Elliot thought of this, a lot less people would have had to die. The game actually had a really interesting marketing campaign before it came out, where they put up posters for fake brands such as Stalker Perfume and So-So Soda. Over the course of 4 weeks, these ads would become infected and decay into advertisements for, you guessed it, Infected. It was a really cool publicity stunt, and I kinda wish that more companies did stuff similar to that. The game itself is a third-person shooter that has you fighting waves of zombies and rescuing civilians. Sounds simple enough, but it's also nail-bitingly difficult at times, as each mission in the game is timed. Not to mention, these aren't your normal traditional zombies that hobble towards you. These things will rush you and even hurl projectiles at you. And I do mean hurl projectiles. These zombies puke. A lot. And you have to master your strafing to make sure you don't get caught in the onslaught of chunks and other viscera. How you actually go about killing the zombies is kinda creative. You have your trusty blood gun that kills them, but before you can use it, you have to weaken them with a primary weapon. May that be shotguns, assault rifles, rocket launchers, what have you. After which they start glowing red and you can finish them off. Think of like the glory kill system in the latest Doom games, but mandatory. You can't overuse the blood gun or else you'll bleed out, but luckily you can chain together weakened zombies and take multiples out with one clean shot. This is a really interesting way of dealing with resource management and rewarding people who can think quick on their feet and are good at kiting a bunch of infected into one single area. This is a fun arcadey experience, but as I already said, it's just not Christmassy in the slightest. The music is primarily nu metal with licensed music from Slipknot and Junkie XL, so I mean, I was absolutely thrashing the whole time, but that's pretty much the polar opposite of Christmas. Which, to be fair, is most likely the point. This game actually uses the Christmas aesthetic really well by juxtaposing the holiday season with the edgy early 2000s dark humor and hyper-violent nature. And Slipknot's inclusion really hammers that home in a fun way. Speaking of Slipknot, you can actually play as all the band's members, along with Santa Claus and... oh dear God, she's following me. So yeah, not a Christmas game, but definitely a fun and quirky little hidden gem on the PSP that I felt like highlighting. It's an obscure oddity with a very Adult Swim-esque personality to it that I would definitely recommend to someone looking for a challenging arcade experience. And those were just a few that I could find. I actually made a video similar to this about 4 years ago when I didn't know what I was doing, and I decided to give this concept another swing to hopefully better effect. But regardless, do you have any games that you like playing during the holidays? Make sure to sound off in the comments. I'm always excited to hear your guys' thoughts. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, leave a like and become a pyromaniac yourself by subscribing. Until next time, Merry Christmas and stay nerdy, my friends.